Hello there everybody, Sam's Trains here, welcome back to the railway and welcome to another review. Up today it is a new tank engine from Hornby. I say that today's engine is a new tank engine from Hornby, but quite obviously this is the Hornby Percy. Except of course he's had his face removed and replaced with a more standard looking smoke box, and he's been painted into this blue T Brown Distilleries livery. And I tell you what, that doesn't half give you some story ideas. So imagine this, right? Percy is stolen by T Brown Distilleries and they change him so that no one will recognise him. So they tear off his face and put a smoke box there instead, and then they paint him into this blue livery so that none of his friends will recognise him. And then they put him to work on the distillery and tell him he's never going to see his friends again. So that's the evil plot. And then, I don't know, maybe the engine's on Sodor, maybe they hatch a plan to rescue him, and maybe they even leave the island of Sodor and come to England somehow to try and rescue him. I don't know, if anyone wants to write that story or even make a video of it, I'd like to watch it, so yeah, do that. Incidentally, the T Brown Distilleries thing, I've looked up that distillery and all that comes up when you Google it, for example, is this locomotive from Hornby. So it's either a really obscure distillery or Hornby just made it up. If Hornby did just make it up, I'd love to know where the name came from. I don't know if it's an in-joke, maybe it's named after one of their employees or something, maybe there's a hidden message behind it. If you've got any ideas where the name might have come from, do comment down below and let me know. Anyway, I pre-ordered this a couple of years ago. I think it must have been last year, maybe at the start of the year when they announced it, for £37, that was the price, from Model Railways Direct, the pre-order was. And then, of course, after Hornby's price increases, the new price I ended up paying was £45.90, which is a 24% increase in price. Absolutely crazy. And the new RRP is £50, £50.99 on Hornby's website. So an insane amount of money for a Percy that's not Percy. Surely, I don't believe it's going to be worth that amount of money, but today we're going to take a look at it and see what it's like. I suppose it should at least be interesting to see how they've converted Percy into an industrial locomotive. And of course, if for some reason you'd like to buy one of these, I will include some affiliate links down in the description for you. But for now, let's take a look at Percy and let's see what they've done to the poor old fellow. So as you can see from the box, this is a Hornby Railroad range locomotive, and the Railroad range is supposed to be more basic models, which are supposed to be a little bit more affordable than models in the main range, although given the price of this, it seems Hornby have done away with that aspect of the model, but we'll give it a fair chance, as every loco deserves. Let me show the end of the box then. So this is the product code. It is R30038. It is an industrial 040 locomotive, T Brown Distilleries. You'll notice that there's no mention of DCC on the end of this box, so presumably this is not a DCC ready locomotive. And of course, unlike Hornby's other, or a lot of Hornby's other railroad locos, this is not going to be a very prototypical engine, is it? Because it's not based on anything in real life, it's based on Percy, who obviously wasn't a real loco. Percy was based on the Great Western Avonside tank engines, I think it was, and if they'd done that instead of this T Brown thing, then maybe you could have argued that it was somewhat prototypical, but yeah, this is not being framed as a Great Western Avonside, is it? So yeah, a bit unfortunate about that combined with the price, but yeah, it might be quite a cute little engine. We'll have to open it up and have a look. So let's do that now. Let's see what they've done with this. Of course, there's no info on the box or anything about the thing in real life. It's probably a good thing too, because there's not a lot to say, I shouldn't think. Would have been cool to have seen a backstory or something about this though. Okay, let's take a look at the instructions. We'll get the boring bit out of the way. So this looks like it's going to be the standard instructions for the 040 locomotives. Let's see if anything has changed. So no, just lubrication, shows you where to lubricate the model when it needs it. Body removal, seems like it works the same as on other Hornby 040s. And as you can see, you have to like poke it with screwdrivers and stuff to do that. So it's not recommended unless you really have to. And then not too much on the back. Right, is this all taped up? Am I going to need Rusty? I might be able to, yeah, let's get Rusty. It's everybody's tetanus friend, Rusty, everybody. Right, see if he can help. Just sort of cut into the phone, but that should do the trick. Right, come on then, Perce, let's see what they did to you. All right, so I mean the colour looks pretty electric, doesn't it? Yeah, it looks pretty bright now that the packaging's off it. I have to say it looks almost similar to the early Hornby Gordon models. They were a sort of deeper blue, weren't they? It's probably a bit deeper than that, but let's see. Right, I've got him. Okay, so here it is. Quite obviously the Hornby Percy, but in this quite nice actually. Yeah, it's not bad, is it? Lined blue livery, the T Brown Distilleries. And the thing I'm interested in is this, the smoke box, because obviously this is not part of the original Percy model because Percy has a face. So my question is, which loco have they pinched this smoke box door from? Have they tooled this up fresh? You know, where did it come from? So I'm going to have to take a look at some other models in my collection and see if I can find one that matches. I think that might be quite interesting. But anyway, yeah, I mean, it's a very, very basic model, as you might expect. Looking at it, it doesn't seem to be the highest quality. I can see moulding marks and sort of chips in the bodywork and such, but we'll talk about all of that in just a second. But yeah, there we go, 50 quid, folks. I must be mad. Anyway. Well, I would normally give you some history on the prototype in real life, but I can't really do that unless you want to hear Percy's story. No, because this is not Percy. Right, Hornby, it's not Percy. So let's go straight on and take a close look at this loco, and we'll take a look at the detail. So there he is up close and personal for you then, Hornby's Old Percy in the T Brown Distilleries livery. And this is what you get, folks. This is what you get for your 50 quid or £45 at the retailers approximately. This is it, all 90 grams of him, which is lighter than a Ruston shunter, by the way. Remember the tiny little Rustons? Yeah, lighter than that. No accessories or anything. This is exactly what you get. And here it is with Percy next to it, and as you can see, yeah, the differences are absolutely minimal, aren't they? I think really besides the smoke box and the paintwork, this is more or less exactly the same model. It's within 1 gram of being the same weight, and at a glance, all of the detailing looks to be absolutely identical. So they really have just taken off the face and painted it into a different colour, and that is it. Speaking of the smoke box door, here it is, as you can see, here it is up close, and I have looked through my collection to see which locomotive Hornby might have borrowed this from, and I can't find a match. So either I don't have the loco that Hornby borrowed this from, or maybe Hornby just retooled it. Maybe they created this smoke box from scratch to produce this model. I don't know. So folks, look at your engines. If you can find a match with this smoke box door, do comment down below and let me know. But yes, the smoke box door is a separately fitted piece. It does appear to be glued in place though, so I'm not going to try and sort of piggle it off because I don't want to damage it or anything. But in theory, if you did get it off, you could put the Percy face onto this and make an interesting blue version of Percy. Anyway, undoubtedly this is ridiculously overpriced and it is a complete rip-off at the, whatever, 45 quid I paid. But I do like it. I mean, it looks really cool, doesn't it? The conversion away from Percy makes this into a loco that we've never really seen before. And if not for the ridiculous price, this would make a really cool entry-level locomotive because it looks pretty good, but it's simple enough so that it's not going to be dropping to pieces or anything. And it's, well, it should be cheap enough to make so that people can actually afford it. It's just such a pity that Hornby have seen fit to put the prices up so much because, I mean, clearly this thing is not going to be very expensive to make. 90 grams, folks. But hopefully Hornby will see sense before it's too late. Hopefully they'll put this into a really inexpensive train set so that people can buy this and get into the hobby nice and cheaply and have a good time, because that's what this is all about. Anyway, this locomotive, I don't think it's particularly nicely made. There's quite a lot on the body that doesn't look very good. I mean, the side of the cab is all scuffed. That is an issue with the tooling because my Percy is exactly the same. And then you've got this sort of panel which goes over the front of the boiler, which is a separately fitted piece. And as you can see, the edges of it, again, are not moulded very nicely. It's really unfortunate that, because this should be nicely made for 50 quid. And this is part of Percy's design. I don't know why they did this. This panel here is above the worm drive, roughly speaking, so I think it must have been put there for servicing, but why? Why ruin the body to do that? Why not just make the body a bit easier to remove rather than dealing with all the clips and annoying parts that make the body removal really difficult? Couple of screws, no annoying panels on the top, the job's a good one. I don't see why they had to complicate it. But yeah, it does sort of ruin the model a little bit from that perspective. But in terms of the decoration and the paintwork, I must say it is very nicely painted. I mean, the running plate, it's all the same piece, by the way, as the main body. So all the black that you can see on the running plate has been masked. And as you can see, the paint bleed is absolutely minimal. Yeah, it looks really good. The little dome on the top, that is not a separately fitted part, so that has been painted. So yeah, the decoration is absolutely fine. All of the lining looks all right. I mean, it's simple. It's very, very simple, but it's good. It looks all right. There is the T-brown lettering, which is a nice print. Yeah, good quality, can't fault that. And then you've got the number, which is number 3 on the side of the cab there, which again has that sort of double colour printing, which looks pretty decent. The level of detail, though, is very much similar to the Hornby Percy, in other words, almost non-existent. The only really nice detail this thing has got is the safety valves here, which are separately fitted metal parts, which they look really out of place, to be honest, don't they? Because they're really fine, they've got a real quality finish, don't match the rest of the model really. And to an extent the same is true of the new smoke box, because it's got rivets on it and fine details such as the lamp bracket there and the little fine smoke box dart. Yeah, quite a lot more detail on that piece than on the rest of the model, which is pretty interesting. So the buffer beams have some moulded detail on them. There are holes, but I don't know if you're supposed to fit some vacuum pipes or anything into those holes. You didn't get any at any rate. And the buffers, I think these buffers are just made of plastic. They feel like they're plastic, but they have been painted into a glossy black, which I think looks all right actually. And then the wheels too have been painted, and I do like that they've actually gone to the trouble of painting the axles black as well. And then around the back you've got the comically tall coal load, which is not a separately fitted part or anything. And then you've got the moulded coal guards around the side, which are also painted black. What looks like a big chunky lamp on the back, which in real life would probably be about, what do you reckon, 3 or 4 feet tall. Yeah, that's a big lamp right there. You've got the big chunky tension lock couplings, which are not NEM compatible, so you're stuck with those unless you want to do some surgery to remove it. No cab detail of any kind, unfortunately. It's just the motor clearly visible inside the cab. So again, for 50 quid, not that nicely made, to be honest. When you could pick these up for 20 to 30 quid, this level of detail was more than acceptable on a basic kids model. But now that these are more like 50 quid, it's becoming a bit of a joke, isn't it, frankly? It's just so transparent how unreasonable that price is. The windows are very basic, no painting on these, unlike Percy, which did have some. And obviously there's no glazing or anything in the windows. And I don't think I mentioned it, but clearly no sprung buffers on a loco of this caliber. So yeah, I mean, if this was cheaper, it would be absolutely fine, but really for 50 quid, it's far too basic and far too poorly made in order to be worth the money. But it does look nice, I suppose. It is something a little bit unusual, and it is nice to see that the Hornby Thomas and Friends moulds haven't just been thrown away. And I do know that there is an E2 coming back in the SECR green. That should be pretty interesting. But I am interested to see what else Hornby has planned for the Thomas and Friends range. Will we see some of the tender locos come back in different liveries with new smoke boxes? I mean, it could be an interesting direction for the railroad range to go in. But for now, let's investigate the performance of this loco. Let's take a look at the mechanism, or lack thereof, I suppose, and we'll see what the performance on this old Hornby Percy is actually like. So there it is, Hornby's new, in inverted commas, industrial 040 shunter. Down onto the track, ready for the first test. Well, to be truthful, I've already filmed the first performance test, and I will show you how this loco ran in just a second. Next though, or first, I want to talk about the mechanism a little bit. Now, let me be very, very clear here. The mechanisms in these locos are very functional. Hornby have used them for absolutely years. They do work pretty well for what they are, and they do have the potential to last quite a long time. But these are very minimal and they are very, very cheap to produce. And if you ask me, Hornby have no business selling a loco with this mechanism for 50 quid. You know, it's just absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely fine when they were 20 to 30 pounds, but you would just expect better at 50 or nearabouts. And of course, you can't really blame inflation for such a crazy price increase, because a 24% increase in price between announcement and release of this model cannot just be explained away by the label of inflation. Because really, this is little more than what you get on those £10 battery-operated train sets in terms of mechanism, except rather than a battery box with batteries in it, this has got metal wheels and pickups. Really, it's essentially the same thing. So here is the chassis. It is just a plastic chassis. There's no die-cast on this whatsoever. It's just a plastic chassis. The only die-cast you do have are the weights that have been put into the front of the loco and also the motor mountings at the back. And as a result, there is no base keeper plate or anything on this loco. The axles are just literally pushed through holes in the plastic chassis, so there is no real serviceability here. If you want to clean the axles or the pickups, you have to take the whole thing to pieces, and it's really just not worth doing. So it's not serviceable. Obviously, there are no proper turned bearings or anything on the axles. It's just, you know, plastic slots, really. And this is just a very cheap 3-pole motor. It says on Hornby.com that this is a 3-pole motor. And as you can see, there is no flywheel or anything fitted to it either. So seriously, bare bones, absolutely fine in a cheap train set loco. And to reiterate, they do work well enough and they last a decent amount of time. It's just, I don't get why they would charge so much for it when it is clearly so cheap to produce. The gauging is okay though, 14.2 millimeters back to back, which is about the standard these days. So there we go. I mean, there's not that much to say, really. It's almost a bit redundant talking about this because everybody knows what makes these locos tick. But it's interesting to see, I suppose, that nothing has changed about this except really the price. Okay, let's go back in time then, and I will roll the performance test for you. Alright, performance test, and I am pretty interested to see how this runs. Obviously I know how Percy used to run because I've got one of those, but that is a few years old now, so is this going to be any better? Is it going to be worse as a brand new loco that's just been released? So let's have a go. Let's set this to forwards and let's find out first of all, does the old Percy work? Here we go. Hey, yes. And I've got to say, I mean, that seems pretty smooth. Yeah, that's all right, isn't it? It's not too bad at all. Yeah, that's not bad. These days, the motors are a lot slower than they used to be. I think probably the early Percys probably were a lot faster than this. But all of Hornby's 040s of this design do now use... Oh, let's cut it out. Yeah, they do use different motors that run slower. There we go. Hasn't been running yet, of course, so a little bit of cutting out is to be expected, but hopefully that will go away after it's run for 30 minutes in each direction or thereabouts. So let's try a crawl. Let's bring it into the middle. Right, I'm going to ease up on the controller, and let's see if it will do with that. Here we go. Still turning up. Saw it jump. And again, still turning up. Alright, so, yeah, not a good crawler. Again, this is fine on a cheap loco, but again the problem is these are not really cheap anymore, so it doesn't get away with it quite so easily anymore. But yeah, I mean, it's alright for a beginner, for someone, for maybe a kid or someone who's just getting started. This seems to be okay, doesn't it? And I'm pretty sure it's going to be fine over the curves and points and such because there's not a lot that can go wrong. But let's send him off around the layout now at about 50% and let's see how he gets on. So this is more or less, I would say, exactly in line with the other 040s that I've tried from Hornby. Not amazing performance, but you know, given how cheap and nasty the mechanism is, it is surprisingly good. Reasonably quiet, I would say. The speed itself is very sensible. The loco certainly doesn't run too fast, and obviously there is plenty of torque there. But as usual, the slow speed produced by that 3-pole motor is not great. It's not terrible, but it's not up to the standard of, let's say, a Hornby Railways 040 or something like that. But as you can see, it is running very nicely without any hesitation or cutting out. So I will keep this running for another hour or so, and then I'll come back in a bit and we'll finish off the review. Alright, yeah, it looks pretty good. I do like the way this looks running around. Okay folks, I am back, and the rip-off, I mean the tank engine, has now been run in, and obviously it went without issue. Yeah, these are all quite reliable locos. No derailing, no slowing down, nice and consistent, and the torque is pretty good. If I ramp this up to 50% speed, you can see that's quite a lot better than some locos that just fall to pieces when you do that. So yeah, I think considering what utter rubbish, quite frankly, the mechanisms are in these, the performance isn't too bad at all. Let's see if the crawl is any better now that it's had a good chance to stretch its legs. Let's have a look. I think it's going to be the same, folks. They usually are, but can't just assume these things. I'm still turning it up. There we go. So yeah, it kicks in at that speed. I mean, really, it's not bad considering the mechanism. I reckon it could have been better for the price, obviously. But yeah, given the mechanism that's inside this thing, yeah, it's not too bad at all. What is pretty bad is the pulling power at 0.09 newtons, which is, I think, 0.01 newtons more than the Hornby Ruston Shunter. So that's around 9 coaches on straight and level track, so it's not a hauler, that's for sure. But then again, it's a small industrial locomotive. It's not expected in real life, not that it's particularly realistic anywhere else, to haul massive amounts of coaches or anything, so that's fair enough. So with that in mind, I've got a rig of wagons, which again is a little bit on the large side really for what this would be doing. So if the loco can manage those without any problems, then I think the pulling power is okay and obviously fit for purpose. So let's give this a go, let's do the coupling, and let's check that the couplings work properly and such. I think they should. Yeah, performance is really good. I mean, if it could crawl, it would be getting a really good performance mark actually. But let's see how it hauls these wagons. How many have we got here out of interest? I think we've got 10 including the brake van. That's a nice round number. Here we go. And yeah, it looks like it's doing that without any problems. So on the middle line, I've got this loco's brother. I think it would have been rude not to run this loco today. So of course, it is our friend Percy. Here he comes, which is, like I say, exactly the same loco as this. And I just want to say a little bit about the price of this Percy, because I bought my Percy in 2017 for £9 more than I paid for my little 040. And I think that is ridiculous. Now, you might be thinking, oh, £9 more for Percy? Well, I haven't told you the whole story there, because for my £55 back in 2017, I didn't just get Percy. I got, brand new, the entire Percy and the mail train set. So 55 quid, I got Percy, I got track, a controller, and I got his mail train, which included a mail coach and a van with all of the mail collecting and dropping off equipment. £9 more, £45. So yeah, I've just lost all respect for Hornby on prices. I'm so disappointed that they can so casually rip people off like that. It's such a disappointment. Anyway, off you go, Percy. At least you were decent value. I know they're going on about shipping and material price increases, whatever, inflation, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't begin to explain such a massive increase in price. And then here's the other one. Here's another example. This is Smoky Joe, which I bought less than 2 years ago. This is the Hornby Centenary Smoky Joe, RRP £39.99. That's more than £10 cheaper than today's loco. And this has the die-cast running plate, much more complex decoration, lining and such, the gloss finish, loads more detail. It's got a cab detail, for instance, £10 cheaper, more than £10 cheaper. Yeah, it's just bonkers. Hornby have lost it. They have lost the plot. Off it goes. Anyway, let's catch up with Percy, the 040. Here we go. So yes, it is a lovely runner. It works really well. It is absolutely fit for purpose. It might be a complete rip-off, and I do believe that, but at least it's a rip-off that actually works properly, and that isn't always a given in this hobby. We've seen plenty of rip-offs that don't work anywhere near adequately enough. So yeah, I think performance is definitely okay for this thing. It's hauling these wagons without any problems, and you know, this is an industrial loco. It's going to be found, in this case, at a distillery, around factories and that sort of thing. It's not going to be hauling massive long freight trains. 10 wagons, I think, is a reasonable maximum for these, and I see no reason to believe that this is the maximum, because as you can see, it's not struggling at all with these. So it's not a brilliant puller or anything, and again, I wish the loco was a little bit heavier given what it cost, but in terms of actual raw functionality, it's perfectly okay. It does what it's supposed to. Let's have some ratings then for the new Hornby T-Brown Distilleries 040 tank engine, and as you can see, I've not been too kind in the scores here, and this is usually the case when I review a beginner 040, but normally they do okay because their inadequacies are usually reflected in the price, and unfortunately these days from Hornby that is no longer the case. So let's take a look at some of this. So the level of detail, I've given 1.5 star. I think that is perfectly fair, to be honest, because you've got very, very simple decoration here, no cab detail of any sort, an absolute minimum of separately fitted detail, obviously no sprung buffers or anything like that, and the bodywork leaves a lot to be desired in terms of the chunks missing out of it and the messy moulding and the design of that weird flap that lifts off the front of the boiler. Not very detailed at all, but it's a beginner's loco, so that is fine, but I have to reflect it in the score. I can't just give it 5 because it's a beginner's loco. Performance is okay, I've given it 3-star, very cheap 3-pole motor in there, so it's no surprise that this loco is not a great crawler. However, at the higher speeds it is perfectly smooth and reasonably quiet, and it's good around curves and across points at the higher speed as well. So I think performance is the strongest aspect of this loco. The pulling power is not very good, 0.09 newtons, which is around 9 coaches on straight and level track. That's way down there with the Rustons, which are obviously like half the size of this thing. So not very powerful because of the lightweight, of course, due to the lack of die cast. The mechanism then is 1-star because there's nothing good about the mechanism, quite frankly. So you've got a plastic chassis, no proper bearings, no access to the axles or the pickups for cleaning, 3-pole motor without a flywheel, and no DCC socket or anything like that. It is really just the cheapest they could possibly have made this. Again, this is all perfectly fine on a cheap beginner's loco as long as it's reflected in the price, and it isn't anymore. The quality then, I've given 3-star. Yeah, it's all right, to be honest. It's okay. The paintwork was very good. I think the paintwork that was on there was done quite precisely, which is decent. It just loses 1-star for the plastic construction because, like I say, that does make the model very light. And also another star just for the way the bodies fit together. Not the greatest moulding, not a very good design, to be quite honest. Just spoils the look a little bit, having messy moulding on parts of the model and also having big cracks in the bodywork like that. It's just not what you'd expect on a nicely made locomotive, regardless of the cost. Okay, so value for money, blimey. Original price of £37, that would have been okay. I think it would have been a little bit on the expensive side, but much better than the new price of £45.90 from the retailers, or £50.99 RRP. That is the amount of money that Hornby would actually take from you if you ordered it from their website. £50.99. Don't forget that Smoky Joe that I reviewed less than 2 years ago, £39.99, and that had so much more to offer than this. So that is a deserving score, I think, of 4.22 out of 10, and let's put that into the logbook where obviously it is going to be in bottom place. Clearly my rating system is not kind to beginners locos, but like I say, usually I can praise them for being very reasonable and being a nice low barrier entry into the hobby for beginners. This is just not that. This is just overpriced tat, which is going to turn people away from the hobby rather than encourage them to get into it. So unfortunately, Hornby have really taken advantage with this. Not that impressed. So there you go, folks, that is my review of the new Hornby T Brown Distilleries 040 tank engine. Yeah, I like the loco overall. I think it's pretty cool. It's nice to see Percy back in the range, and my rating system isn't very kind to it because it's designed for serious models, and this is not supposed to be a serious model. This is supposed to be a beginner's model. The only thing that I think is truly unreasonable about this thing is, of course, the price. And that is what means I do not recommend this model to you, unfortunately. You simply do not get what you pay for with this model. If you really want one of these and you like the look of it, I would just say wait. If nobody buys them and they have to be reduced in sales and such, then great, pick one up. If they sell out and you don't get one, it's no big deal. You're not missing out on very much. And frankly, you could 3D print something a lot nicer for an awful lot less money. I could probably make 4 of these for the price I paid for this one. But either way, it's a nice looking loco. It is very basic, it's very simple, but it does what it's supposed to on the tin. So overall, it's a good product at a silly price. I think that sums it up for you. So thank you so much for watching. I will see you very, very soon for another review. You look after yourselves, and I'll catch you on the next one. All right, cheers everybody.